I think one of the abiding characteristics of a lot of the work of this current generation is a return to research-led or research-based practices. Certainly one which chimes with kind of earlier conceptual art. An artist like Katie Patterson, for example, her work is incredibly engaged with a variety of different disciplines, astrophysics being the predominant one, and also learning about different sophisticated technologies or specialist expertise, and speaking to people who are experts in those areas, and working with them in the development of her projects. And she in particular is interested in kind of staging these very intimate, poetic and philosophical engagements between man and nature or the cosmos. It's exploratory, it's about how man is negotiating his relationship with the world, and it's very research-based.
There's kind of two bodies of work that I'm showing in this exhibition that come from two larger projects. One of them is from a project called Lustfaust. It's a series of gig posters from the band Lustfaust, a band that actually initially never existed and consequently has come to exist. And a collection of works from a broader project I made about American history that are a series of drawings called The Incumbents and a couple of paintings. I was always interested in the whole notion, what actually is a band? You know, does it need to be 3 or 4 people who are consistently present, or can it be a name that you can populate with different figures that give it a different take? Each of the 3 posters that are in this show is associated with a particular maker, a particular fan of Lustfaust, which is, you know, is a non-real person, but a person that's been kind of generated through their kind of their method of documenting the band, their stylistic method visually. The idea was born out of this kind of essence of fact-checking now, this idea that you can kind of believe in anything if you can Google it, or if you Google it and it returns a certain number of responses that kind of legitimize it. The particular thing I like about, you know, kind of archival historical works, and what I always try and kind of promote, is this sense of delivery, presentation. Somebody has thought about this, how this thing is transferred, you know, how this thing is articulated. You know, no information is pure, it's all, somebody's hand is in there somewhere, and sometimes that's visible, sometimes it's not. And, you know, the thing I try to do when I make these works is, you know, show my hand as visibly as possible, but also show the idea that, you know, what you're seeing isn't necessarily what's happened. It's one version of what's happened, and, you know, there's a million other versions that you won't see. And I like the idea that you could, you know, equalize the playing field of historical documents by using a newspaper and comparing that with, say, an encyclopedia or, you know, some form of recognized officialdom. I really like the idea that, you know, alongside the official line, there's this alternative line, which, you know, might lead to the same conclusion, but might also give you an alternative take on the time you've lived through.
My name's Ivan Morison. I work with my wife, Heather. It's Heather and Ivan Morison. In this show, we've got it's a large kite piece. It's called The Opposite of All Those Things. And we've got 3-frame photographic drawing works, Frost King, 4, and Spiral Jetty. The kite works, we have a series of them. They're ongoing. The form comes from galena and pyrite. So we were in search of various mineral forms for a variety of different sculpture projects we're doing, one of them being these kite works. We took them to Carl Robertshaw, who's the world champion kite flyer. And he also runs a company that design and build kites. But all those kites are quite traditional, either a stunt kite or a large floppy kite form. We're more interested in the kites that came out of the 70s, and a couple of kite artists who were working then in the 70s, which were doing these very beautiful, very minimal forms, you know, that flew in the sky. It's the most beautiful thing. And we wanted to go back to that, but you could then just mix it up and make it into something far more complicated. So we wanted to make a piece of sculpture, and we wanted to make a kite, and we wanted to make something that seemed impossible, really. Impossible to fly, impossible to make. Something that's come from something very small and dense and dark to something that is ginormous and is light enough to fly. But even in itself, it's from the side, it's at this very solid form, and yet when you come to it from the front, it opens out completely. So it was originally built as one of a pair. One was called Kind, Wise and Loving, and this one's called the opposite of all those things. And the other one is very light, silver kite.
I got asked a really interesting question in an interview the other day about why should my views as a curator be trusted? And in actual fact, I don't think there is any reason why they should be trusted. And I would hope that audiences coming to this show would bring their own critical faculties and bring that to bear on any cultural or curatorial assumptions that they see in the presentation of the work. I mean, really, I've made a selection of artists and a selection of work which I hope illuminates something about the various artistic strategies and current thematic concerns engaging this younger generation of artists. And I'm not trying to be any more conclusive or resolved than that, really. There are points of intersection, there are thoughts and ideas which move across and between the different artists. But beyond that, I think it's impossible to sort of generalize on contemporary British art as a scene or as any sort of singular school or movement. What I like about the work is that it's open-ended, it's inconclusive, and I hope the show is a bit like that as well, and that there aren't necessarily any great grander narratives or conclusions to be made from it.